doing a presentation, show me the movie, turning your gripping stories into, turning your stories into gripping narratives. And we've been working in nonfiction, and she's been writing a book, and so there are 3 players in this play, and my role is being the developmental editor. She's the ghostwriter, and we've got the person, and then the main character tells her the story. And so we have had the pleasure of her hearing the story, writing it, and she'll send it to me, and I will look at it and give feedback, ask questions. And what I thought would be good is go back to the beginning. And I said what really inspired me to do this was hearing Felicia read at the Christmas party. It was just amazing how gripping this stuff was. And I think for both of us was, well, we've come, it says a little bit about where we've come as part of the process. And this is not to show, but to sort of show each person here that writing is a process. And, you know, as I like to say, Toni Morrison isn't Toni Morrison on the first go. She's going to have to write it again and again and again and again. And to Felicia's credit, she has been really, really good. Every time I've asked a question, she's she's always, you know, gone deeper. And so that has been a real pleasure. This is a very, very early version of what happened. And you want to read it? And then tell them a little bit about the context.
Okay. The events that triggered this memoir occurred in 2013, and the event was very tragic. The author's name is Doris Strong, and her father was murdered. She approached me in 2015 to write the story, and I'd like to say that this story is divided in half. I call it BA and then AA, before Andrew and after Andrew. Before Andrew, I talked to Mrs. Strong, I interviewed her, she gave me access to her journal. I did some research on the person that killed her father, and I took all of that, and I thought I was giving her what she wanted. But what I was doing was I was telling the story through my eyes, not through hers. And it came out more or less like a report, because I included information from the investigation report, news articles, but you couldn't feel Mrs. Strong, you couldn't feel her pain. So she liked what I'd done, but then when Andrew AA got hold to it, it started to grow, and I literally stepped into her shoes and I started to feel what she was feeling. I wanted to be able to convey what she was feeling to others. And that also included research. And what Andrew brought to the table along, you know, the other great things was that we need to bring in elements that resonated with people outside of Mrs. Strong's story. You know, it's not just her story. Like what's going on at the time that this is happening. So I brought in information like what the weather was like, what the events are that day. We were fortunate enough to get a story from a lady who was very nearly another victim of Ted Bundy, because Mrs. Strong has sort of a working relationship with her. That's in the story. We brought that in, and that brings in Tallahassee, that brings in the state of Florida, it brings in the world, because everybody knows who Ted Bundy is, and we were able to tie in her story with that. So that kind of expanded her little world. So when Andrew would send me his notes, I would think, okay, well, how did I miss that? You know, he would say, you know, these are moments of high drama. You can't rush it. You can't give it 2 or 3 lines. And that's how the story started growing and growing.
Oh my goodness.
So this is where we are right now. So is this what I've done recently?
Well, this was in the first initial draft, and what we have, she's in church on a Wednesday night, and she gets a phone call. and to tell her that her father has been shot. And she bolts, she drops everything and runs. And when my reaction was like, whoa, this is a lot. But my sense was that there's so much going on in a scene. If we rush, because it's like if this drops, if I drop my phone, it's not that I just dropped my phone. Something happened. I touch my phone. It goes to the edge of the paper. Gravity affects it, and it hits it. So there were 5 things that happened. And so part of the narrative role is to break things down. Like, for example, the movie. A movie isn't just a movie. A movie is a million still pictures. And so, as a writer, your goal is you have to capture as many as those still pictures as possible. Because, and we live in a movie age, but, people didn't always have movies, but thankfully we do. And so what happens is that things are moving really fast. And, if you remember with movies, if there's a really big shooting scene, what do?
Elongate it.
They slow it down, they put it in slow motion so you can, because in real life you can't see bullets, but in the movies they slow it down. And so as the author, you have the power to do that. And so what we did was that, because initially it's 5 lines and she's already heard that her father is dead. And the sense is, ooh, that's really a lot.
Yeah.
Because one of the things too is that if somebody gets shot and we don't know the person, we really don't care about the person. And part of the thing that we also need to do is when you're doing stuff is, why would I care about you? And people don't just care because they care because writers make them care. And whether you're doing it for the newspaper or for a novel, your characters, people need to, if people are going to care about the characters, they need to know. And why do people care? They care because they know your story a little. This person come from this kind of background, this person shares the background with you. And so all of a sudden, it's all about empathy. And so what we had was a situation was something bad was happening to somebody, but we didn't know who the people were. We had no investment in them. And so what we had to do was, how do we find a way to keep the action going and at the same time give people reasons to invest in the characters early?
Anybody who knows me knows not to call on a Wednesday night. That's Bible study. I don't answer my cell phone on Wednesday nights. I read the scripture and did the prayer. When I returned to my seat, my cell phone was ringing. I wasn't going to answer it, but it was Pumpkin, my stepbrother. I stepped outside into the cool air. It was October 2nd, 2014. I answered the phone. Hello? That boy done shot Pops. I remember screaming and crying and running back into the church. I remember grabbing my keys and purse. I remember the tug of war of my husband Levon over the keys. I don't remember how he got the keys out of my death grip, but he was driving and I was riding, screaming and crying. Those 6.5 miles from my dad's house was the longest ride of my life.
Okay, you go ahead and read that.
Good opening. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Anybody who knows me knows not to call me on a Wednesday night. Immediately after I leave work as an accountant for the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice, I don't even go home. I head straight for church. Wednesday night is Bible study night at the Father's house. It's a non-denominational storefront church on Tharp Street on the north side of Tallahassee. If you walk in on Wednesday night, don't be surprised to hear Sister Woods prophesying or see her lay hands and start praying for some young man or woman. Pastor Deshawn D. Hedrington usually leads Bible study. She's a fireball preacher from St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. When Pastor D gets in the spirit, that island accent really comes out. Sometimes I don't even understand what she's saying, but what the ear misses, the heart hears. She and her husband, Roland, founded the church back in 2013. We have about 20 members, including a few couples with young children. Bible study is well organized. I make up the schedule of who's going to read the scripture lesson and say the opening prayers. That night, I picked myself. I walked up to read from my ragged, worn King James Bible with all my little notes and markings. After the prayer, I took my seat in the back row with the metal folding chairs. I was the usher too. Walking back to my seat, I could see my phone light up on the chair where I left it. It was on vibrate, so I could barely hear the murmuring sound of plastic drumming on metal as I got closer. Who could that be? Everybody who has my number knows that I'm in Bible study, I thought. And when I am, I don't answer my phone. I wasn't gonna answer. The screen said Pumpkin. It was my stepbrother. He lived with my daddy and took really good care of him. He knows better than to call me on a Wednesday night. It had to be serious. I stepped outside into the cool air. My bare arms detected a slight chill, but it wasn't quite sweater weather. It was October 2nd, 2013. October was the clearest month. There was nothing to obstruct my view of the beautiful twinkling stars. The immensity of the heavens seemed like a Bible verse reminding me of how good God is and how much I had to be thankful for. It was the day after my daughter's 35th birthday. We planned to do something special for her on the weekend. I was looking forward to a good time.
Stop for a second.
Oh, yeah.
You see the difference?
Yes.
It made it so that we cared more about who she was.
Yes.
And it's a more visualization.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah.
The little
Instead of going boom, 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 boom.
And the tempo. Go ahead.
And you can also see the shift in the movement. It takes you from a peaceful state to the sharp piece. It moves you right through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We anticipate what's going on.
It also helps me understand who she is culturally, because when I think church, I think of Bethel missionary background.
Now you see
More
the
of a family church, you
What size
know.
it is.
It's just, it builds that
Involvement.
that picture there.
Yeah.
What I was able to grasp out of the differences was I could have a visual of her as a physical person walking up the front to present her own readings, and then walking back to that chair, that aluminum chair, and hearing the vibration of the phone and, the screen lighting up. And, I could picture her mental, conversation and her face shifting with that mental conversation, and that was a big difference for me.
That was helpful because, and it's funny because I know the pastor's, my daughter's principal. So, yeah. So, like, my mom's Caribbean. So I could literally hear, like, the voices and the accents and the even, like, the chaos and, like, the small church, even though it's a small church, a lot be going on in the small church. Like, I saw the families and the children and, like, the band can, like, sit down. Like, took him outside. So it was, like, all of that. And then it also connected you with her, because it's like, dang, she done went to work. She got like 2 positions. She gonna read the scripture and she does in the back. Like, she got a lot going on. Yeah. So like, and it was funny because when you read the first one, I was thinking like when she answered the phone the first time, I was just thinking like, if I answered the phone and I'm supposed to be in church, I'm not even gonna be nice to you. You know I'm in Bible study. Why are you calling me? So that second reading gave that extraness of like seeing like that just transformation from like when somebody gets off work to everything. So it really made me connected, like I want to read the rest of the book, like so that was really good.
And the 2 versions are like, one is a story. The first version is a story, somebody telling a story. But the second version is has showing it, and it also has a literary quality to it that just the story doesn't have on itself, on its own.
It also changed your expectation of what was going to come next.
And
I want to hear the rest of it.
it makes you, well, for me, it makes me a part of the story now. I'm more of a serious. I'm always like in the church with her. It places me there. That part of the story literally places me there. The extra.
Right.
And I get
Thank
to
you
be a
for
part of
putting
it.
us in the movie.
Yeah.
Because that's what it felt
That's
like.
what it does.
We were
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah, puts us in the movie.
Congregation.
One of the early discussions that we had was whether the book should be in the first person or the third person. That was a big discussion we had, and which is what she was talking about, is that should she tell it as somebody else telling the story or as Mrs. Strong telling the story? And I thought if Mrs. Strong tells it, it allows her to go places emotionally that maybe the third person wouldn't allow.
Felicia, how hard was that to do, to go from telling in third person to go to writing in first person?
I like writing in first person, and it just didn't occur to me to write her story in first person. And I was able to feel the things she was feeling. You know, I read all her journals, and it still didn't hit me the same way after I wrote it, you know, from my perspective. I was paraphrasing, I would say paraphrasing her pain. In first person, it's just laid bare, you know, and, you know, when she cries, you cry too, when she laughs, we laugh, and it just wasn't coming across in my first version. You know, even though she cried, you know, she's a crier here in the book, but I didn't think anybody else would react to it the same way in that first version. So now, and the reading at the Christmas party really re-energized me. I was like, wow, I didn't think people would react to it that way. So.
And the other thing that struck me was that we got to the house, in the first version, she got to the dad's house in 280 words. Yeah, she got to the dad's house in 280 words. And I'm thinking, we can't afford to get to the house that quick. Yeah, because even the drive, because it's like, you know, driving, is it driving south? Is it driving north? Because initially, I pictured the place being someplace on the north side. But then, no, she said it's on the south side. So then, what does the drive look like? And there are people who don't live in, we live in Tallahassee, so we take it for granted. So then what she does is like, even if you're in Timbuktu, she gives you a sense of the drive.
Did you actually take the drive?
I drive that road all the time.
Oh, okay,
Going to work.
Oh, okay.
All right. Says, the screen said Pumpkin. It was my stepbrother. He lived with my daddy and took really good care of him. He knows better than to call me on a Wednesday night. It had to be serious. I stepped outside into the cool air. My bare arms detected a slight chill, but it wasn't quite sweater weather. It was October 2nd, 2013. October was the clearest month. There was nothing to obstruct my view of the beautiful twinkling stars. The immensity of the heavens seemed like a Bible verse reminding me of how good God is and how I had so much to be thankful for. It was the day after my daughter's 35th birthday. We planned to do something special for her on the weekend. I was looking forward to a good time. That day had historical significance. Nat Turner was born on that day in 1800. Mahatma Gandhi entered the world on that day 69 years later. Those two men were serious. They really tried to change the world. My daughter also shared a birthday with comedian Groucho Marx, somebody who could put a smile on people's faces. But there would be nothing for me to laugh about that night. I answered the phone. Hello? That boy done shot Pops. The words hung in the cool night for a second before they registered in my brain. Did he really say what I thought I just heard? Pops, my daddy, Willie James Dixon Jr. He was a harmless 82-year-old man who couldn't hurt nobody. My best friend, the man I loved with all my heart. I had just talked to him before I left work a few hours earlier. He wasn't his usually talkative self. That boy, my soul instinctively contracted. Plunkett didn't need to call EJ by name. Shot. The words hit me like a kick in the heart. They shattered my peaceful world like a rock through a plate glass window. Pops. My heart melted. I screamed into the night air as if the whole world could hear me. There were no words, just the sound of anguish coming from the place where pain hurts the most. I'm a crier. I cry easily. I watch Undercover Boss and I sit there bawling. But that night, that cry was different. This was a daughter's cry. As I burst inside, everyone turned and looked at me. The notes of the song stopped immediately, as if someone had yanked the electric cord on the CD soundtrack. I grabbed my keys and my pocketbook from the back row, and without saying anything to anyone, rushed back outside. As if in unison, the church members rushed out behind me, all wearing big question marks on their faces. He shot Daddy. He shot my daddy. The last thing I heard Pumpkin say was that my daddy was still alive. I ran to my vehicle. Before I could open the door to the silver Tahoe SUV, my husband Levon tried to grab my keys. Give me the keys. Give me the keys, he demanded. I held on. I wanted to drive myself. I needed to get to my daddy. He was persistent and stronger, even with my death grip on those keys. At 5'9", he's muscular like a football player. He was too strong for me to fight, so I surrendered and gave him the keys and climbed in beside him. He backed out of the church parking lot, and we turned south for Daddy's house.
Your question, and I know you want to ask it. Okay, so then, how do I get from here to there? Because again, that's the fun thing about writing, is you see somebody do stuff and it's like, what are they doing and how did they do it? A couple of suggestions. One, revisions are always good. What we call layering. For example, he walked in. There's a sentence. He walked inside the door. He walked into the house. That's simple declarative sentence. He walked into the house. If we can have a game, we can come up with 10 more sentences to this, to tell in terms of telling a story. So example, can I get a suggestion from somebody? He walked into a house. What's the next sentence? Building on this sentence.
Slam the door.
The room was dark or light or whatever.
Okay.
Describe the room. Yeah.
Okay, so you were inside.
Yes.
I'm gonna say the smell, you could do the smell, I could smell where.
Okay, so a couple things here. So somebody's smelling, somebody's slamming the door.
Somebody's seeing, somebody's hearing.
The question is, do we want to go there yet, or do we want to do something else before we? Because eventually, once you walk into the house, all that stuff will come. But the question is, as part of the layering, are there other things that we can add before we start spelling?
Her heart's pounding as she walks in. How's she feeling as she walks in?
And I think you can also.
Something that's.
Okay, all right. Okay, but you know what? I'll write down what you say, and then we can always come back and move stuff around. Okay, Cynthia, what did you say?
My heart's pounding as I walk in.
Okay,
or
so
as I rush in. Because I'm not walking, I'm rushing. I want to get.
I don't even know if I'm walking. I don't know what
My
I'm doing.
heart's pounding.
well, that's a good. See,
Because in that moment,
walk. You mentioned you don't even know if you're walking. Well, the question is, when somebody walk, you can walk.
Fast, slow,
You can. So just by saying walk.
As I
In revision, you may want to come back and say stride or drag, because walk is pretty neutral. So all right. So his heart was pounding. Okay. Somebody said about spell.
But I was also thinking, if you're rushing, what happened to you prior? What I'm saying, I had a hard day at work, I'm rushing in, or something happened, you know what I'm saying, to make you get in that state so you can, in a sense, back up to the mindset of you wanting even to get in. You know what I'm saying?
So we'll say the alcohol from dinner.
Or it would be something as to, I didn't feel that tiredness that I felt earlier as I'm going into the door. And you see, the first thing you see that you're not seeing are the pictures. And so you're saying that I don't see the pictures that are on the wall of my father, of my, of all the family with the smiling faces and everything. The only thing I can see is my, whatever.
And slamming of the door is an audible kind of motion. What are you cutting off by the slamming of the door? What's outside the lawnmower in the neighbor's yard? Are you cutting off the sound of the children playing in the yard?
Well, I didn't realize that I slammed the door until I heard the sound.
That's good.
This is amazing. What I'm hearing is that every action has a reaction. Every action has consequences, and as a writer, you can rush by, or you can just linger. But again, part of the revision process is that when you come back, you linger. Do I need to do more? And even like her standing outside in that night air, that I found was just such a magical moment, because it's like we've all had those moments where in the fall and it's clear and the heavens speak to us, and we're not always as eloquent as she is about God speaking to us, but it happens. But in true revision, it's possible. But part of it is that you can't rush the big moments. You can't rush the big moments. You have to dwell on the big moments. And I think the big moments, how you treat the big moments, I think, is what separates great writers from people who are still learning the craft. Because I remember there was a guy, he wrote The Return, going back to Libya. His father had disappeared, and it was after the revolution, and it was the first time his family was going back to Libya. And they were at the airport, and the scene at the airport before they boarded the plane went on for page after page after page. And it's like, when are they going to get on the plane? But no, it was important to build, because it was such a long time between when they left and when they returned. So that built, it was like, and I realized, well, if it was me, they would have been in Libya already. You really have to build those moments and take your time. And the good thing is having somebody else to read the stuff too, because having that extra set of eyes, because the story and the story's in your head, but somebody else, what does he look like? Where is he going? And which has been fun for us is like, she'd send me stuff and it's like, I didn't know that, and I'd ask questions. Let me show, and one of the beautiful things that there've been no snark, because sometimes it's so tempting to, the writer should know that. As an editor, it's so easy to slip into stock. But the thing is, being an editor humbles you, because the person who's doing the writing has the real hard work to do. It's easy to edit other people's work. Yeah. They've done the hard work. Writing good stuff.
I'm glad you're touching on this, because I think that's one of the problems I may be having, because I let my mother read my passages and she likes them. She really likes them, but she says it's awful fast. In her own way, she's saying what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm one of those people who like to, write with all five senses or whatever. But for some reason, I think of my books as movies, and I think I handicap myself, because I think I get someplace in 280 words instead of more words. So and I realized, like, one of my favorite directors is Tarantino, and he does nothing but action films, but they're very slow, and it's a lot of dialogue, and it really sets up that big moment. And so I think that's a perfect example of how to keep the action moving, but with a lot of dialogue and a lot of descriptive words.
Yeah, because the thing about description is that it needs to tell you something about the character, and like the stuff, her appreciation of the skies and the stars sort of showed her something about her relationship with God and the way she sees the world. It told us something about her. Was it Barbara? Yeah, Barbara. Somebody, did you have your hand up now?
Someone had their hand.
Oh, thing I was going to say is that details are good, but remember, what she wrote the first time was the first draft. There's nothing wrong with that as a first draft. I just want to make that point clear. Because a lot of people, you get caught up in trying to add descriptions as you write that first draft, and you're never going to get done. So just go with he walked, she said, and keep it moving until you get to the end of the story. Then you go back and add the description and detail.
Good point.
That was a lot of what we've been doing in terms of really seeing the big moments and making sure that we milk every bit of thing out of them. And I think for her it's been fun going back and asking Doris, because like Doris has a really wonderful memory. She remembers stuff, so that makes her job a lot easier. A lot easier. Yes.
So what kind of questions do you ask when you're ghostwriting?
I would ask her, she met her husband, Levon, in the beginning, after she had been in a very intense 2-year relationship. So I went back and asked her about that, because we kind of brushed over that. And I would say, well, where did you meet him? how did the relationship begin? What was it like? And that was one of the areas where I kind of rushed through it. And Andrew would say, well, who is this guy? I mean, you say, you know, she loved him. What does that look like? I was doing a lot of telling and not showing. So I would just ask her the question, let her talk, and the details would just come tumbling out, and they were great for the book, and it just made it better every time. And I remember this first draft, just first page, I think half a page, she's already driving, and I'm on page 4, and this is where they start to drive. So I really appreciate how he's pulling all of that out of me to make her story better, because every time I read it to her, I would call her from time to time, read different things I read, and we'd be laughing at some point. Sometimes she's crying. She's got people asking her, when is it coming out? We don't want to rush it.
Don't rush it.
Don't rush it. But those are the questions. I had 1 or 2 questions, and I'm getting great details about her, about her father. We talked to her aunts. You know, we talked to different people to bring in, to fill in the gaps. I did research on, you know, how far it was from where she was to where her father lived, and all of those details, you know.
And the fact that she was a Bible teacher and all of that?
Yes.
Okay.
And Felicia, like I said, she's been really, really wonderful to work with. And, you know, I think we find ourselves in collaborations from time to time, and some work, some work. But this has been really, 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 really cool. And again, when I heard her read that stuff, I said, oh my goodness, she's really nailed it. And if she reads it publicly as well as she writes it, folks gonna buy that. Okay, just a couple of takeaways, nothing big. You know,
Just one quick question. Did you take any of this?
I did.
You take her board?
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say, you can't be doing them. That's right.
Call on the phone, interview her.
Okay, good.
Record it.
All right, good. Okay.
How often do you guys meet, you and her?
Not a lot, but since we started this project, it inspired her to join a lot of different organizations with domestic violence, and part of the story is her forgiving the person that killed her father, and that sent her into the prisons to talk to inmates about.
Since you started the book, or before?
Yeah.
Since?
Yeah, and you know, to get them to see their victims as people, and to get them to how to figure out where they went wrong, so when they're released, they won't offend.
Wow.
And so she's always on some board, probably somewhere today. So I think that's really good, really turning point in the story, forgiving the person that killed the person you love most.
So what happens after? When you're done the book, how does she go? As a ghost writer, where does your responsibility end?
She wants me to come along with her on tours and things, and because I would be the reader, because she wouldn't be able to get through the first page without crying.
Right,
you know?
and that makes sense.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, so how do you go towards the publishing end of it? Are you guys going to self-publish, or is she going to try to find an agent, or how does that?
I would like to do a little of both. I mean, we can start, getting it out there, self-publishing, get it out there while we shop for
an agent.
Oh,
okay, so you're going to try to do both?
Yeah.
Okay.
But she's eager to get it out. People are asking her about it, which makes me feel bad.
No.
But, I want it to be right.
Yeah. And so far it's right, and if if it took you 2 years to do the right piece, then, yeah.
So you can self-publish, and then with the hopes of still getting to a major publisher?
Yeah.
And they don't have a problem with it already being out?
No, as a matter of fact, that's a good selling point, because if you self-publish and you sell 50,000 copies in 5 months, you got a good selling point for a contract.
That would be yeah.
It's a great way to get noticed. If you're especially if you're in the bookstore and your book is selling, say, 1,000 copies a month. The publisher's going to see what book. They look at those numbers that are selling in the bookstores, and if it's a self-published book that's selling 1,000 copies a month, they're going to want to know who it is. So how close are you to being To the end, Felicia.
I think what we talked about was maybe ending it after she forgave him, because something ironic occurred. Okay. Well, the person that killed her father is actually her stepbrother, who was a paraplegic. He was arrested, he was charged, but he died before he could be tried.
Oh, wow.
And in the eyes of the law, it means he never did it. Although he confessed to it, there was all kinds of evidence, but it was one case management after another, and so he was dying, and he died in prison. And if she had not forgiven him before he died, she would be a very bitter person right now. And so that's what helped her with her, wanting to help others, other inmates. She couldn't talk to another person who had taken somebody's life. So we figured that's a good place to end it, because she's done so much since then.
But that was a good question in terms of where does it end? Because the other thing that we talked about was, where do we begin? Yes, where does the story begin? And with stories where you know the ending, then if the ending is a mystery, then you treat the ending different. But when somebody died, like Titanic, where we all know how it ends. So if we all know how it ends, then nobody, chances are you don't know how it begins. And so you start where you start is really important. So what we did, we started at that big moment, and then then you went back from the beginning and tell the story from the beginning to the end.
Does this change the way you write your own now? Or?
It does. I can go back and read things I've written before. I said, okay, Andrew would have said, no, you rushed this. This whole page would be read. But yes, I'm learning a lot about myself.
Well, thank you very much. You've been a wonderful class.